Advanced polls are now open in Conservative Party leader Pierre Paul's by-election race. He's trying to make his way back to the House of Commons after losing his Ottawa area riding in the federal election. His former campaign manager, Jenni Byrne, is speaking about how the party fared in a rare interview, joining Beyond a Ballot podcast to talk about the election results and her future with the party.
I am going to, as I said, stay on as an advisor. I am now. I, of course, advise Pierre. I speak to people on a daily basis, and I'm going to continue to. Do that. But I've stepped back from the day to day, and I'm not going to run the next campaign.
Rachael Segal did the interview. She is a host of Beyond a Ballot podcast, and she joins us now. Rachael, thank you very much for taking the time to speak with us. What was your big takeaway from this interview?
I think for me, the really big part of this conversation with Jenni Byrne was the fact that she was so open. I had done background research on Jenni and realized that the biggest part of the equation, her voice, was really missing from the national narrative. And so I went into the interview with two goals. One was to really get who Jenni Byrne is. What does she like to do? How does she think? What are her values? But also to really dissect the last campaign, because that was a historic campaign, especially for the Conservatives. We saw the Conservatives go from a 22-point lead to losing government, and she was behind that campaign. And so I really wanted to know how she's feeling a couple of months out, whether or not she had regrets, whether or not she still stood behind some of the decisions that she had made during that time. And ultimately, I think what was most surprising is the fact that she answered absolutely everything. There was not one thing that she didn't completely dive into, including her thought processes, anything that she had regretted. And so I thought, after leaving that conversation, I thought that was pretty cool. And it was pretty cool to have that on the historical record for the country.
And Jenni Byrne made news in this interview telling you that she will not run the next Conservative election campaign. There has been some internal party fighting about that big lead that the party lost in the end. I'm curious, what do you think her announcement that she will not run the next campaign, what does that mean for Pierre Paul?
For Pierre, I think it means that he will continue on the path that he has been on. And one of the interesting parts of the conversation that I had with Jenni was the fact that she realized very early on that Pierre had this momentum behind him. She talks about it as the COVID voter, this new Conservative coalition, the people that were coming out of their parents' basements to go to Pierre Paul rallies across the country. The woman who she mentions in the conversation who tried to spend her last $15 to buy a membership because Pierre finally gave her hope. And so I think that Pierre himself has built this incredible momentum and this new definition of what modern conservatism is in this country. And so for him, it will mean hopefully winning that by-election on the 18th and then continuing on to broaden the already large base that he has grown over the last few years.
One of the things that you talk about in this interview is that Jenni Byrne has attracted a lot of sort of commentary when it comes to what happened behind the scenes. The party was going into this election with in the months leading up to the election as well, this massive lead. Everyone thought it was going to be a Conservative landslide. And in the time since, there's sort of been a picking apart of the campaign, which happens after losses. But there's been an unusual focus on Jenni Byrne, which you guys sort of addressed there. Given that attention, do you think that her decision not to run the next campaign will have any sort of impact on Pierre Paul as he goes forward facing a leadership test in January?
I think that Jenni has been a very close confidant of Pierre Paul for many years, long before he became leader of the Conservative Party. And I think she will continue to be that close advisor to him throughout the next campaign. At one point, I did ask her about that. I said, do you believe that the Conservative Party will rally behind Pierre as leader at the convention in January? And she said, yes, absolutely. And so I think, like I said, that this is really going to be about getting Pierre over the line, becoming prime minister, and building a coalition that's even bigger than the one that they were able to create in this last campaign. I mean, to her credit, although they did lose, the Conservatives were able to pull the biggest vote they had ever seen in a federal campaign, and to really grow what it meant to be a modern Conservative in Canada. And she's really the one who, along with Pierre Paul, was able to do that, was able to grow that community of Conservatives across the country. And I think there are still a lot of Conservatives, and many that I've heard from today after the interview aired, that are really rooting for the party to come in and to become government and to make big changes in this country.
We're running out of time. We've got about 30 seconds left, but I do want to ask you, coming out of this interview, you did talk to Jenni Byrne about sort of some of the lessons learned along the way and things that she would do differently. Do you think there is one point from her that stands out as like a lesson, like a lesson learned moment that, you know, really stands out that could be applied more broadly to Canadian politics?
I don't know what, more broadly. I think one of the most interesting points is when she talked about Pierre losing his seat, that they weren't as prepared as they could have been for that one. And so maybe the general lesson there is just that preparing and anticipating every outcome in an election campaign ultimately has benefit to the party itself. But I think the number one lesson from this episode is that Jenni Byrne has played a really pivotal role in Canadian history and shaping what it means to be a Conservative in this country, and a lot of the leaders that have been able to put forward Conservative agendas and run parties. And it's really great now to have her voice, an hour of her voice, an hour of her reflection on the record for Canadians.
And that hour goes by real quick when you give it a listen. It's super fascinating. Rachael, thank you for your time.
Thanks so much.